Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
Single best idea. What an interesting show today. Really eclectic. In this massive pullback we've seen in the market, we're down 1.3% from the peak. But, a little tension in the market. Yields up today. We are very strong. Some really interesting technical analysis. Paul Sweeney from Bank of America with a whole set of charts saying we are in trend for higher rates and what that'll mean for everything we do in economics, finance, investment. Just any number of other people. We had Lauren Hochfelder from Morgan Stanley was brilliant on real estate away from the commercial debacle. We're all living coast to coast. But just an interesting bond and equity bifurcation today. Amanda Lynam was in from BlackRock. We talked to Amanda Lynam about what the Fed optionality is. They're in a quiet period. And with yields up, the 2-year near 5%, what are the options that the Fed has?
There's not really a sense of urgency for the Fed to normalize policy. And even when they do, it's likely to be a shallow cutting cycle. So for corporate credit, that means we shouldn't be banking on significant near-term interest rate relief. I think the tail risk that we're watching, and the longer that rate cuts get delayed, I think lends more credence to this possibility, is that of a rate hike. And a rate hike would not be negative for credit because of the incremental 25 or 50 basis points mathematically. It would be more negative for credit because of the uncertainty that it would interject related to the forward path of monetary policy. That's not a great backdrop for credit. That's not a great backdrop for deal making, specifically kind of sponsor related M&A. And so that's what we're watching for. It's not our base case, but it's a concern. And that's really the risk.
Amanda Lynam there with BlackRock. We thank her this morning. Thank you to all of you out on YouTube. We had some audio problems this morning. That happens. And one of our interns from Villanova figured it out, which is great. I mean, it's just, that's what they're here for. It was like one single button in the control room. And thanks to Ken Fellio, our global technical director, for getting us through that. Part of the debate here, of course, is on the equity market, NVIDIA to the moon. We did a real interesting, almost vamp, I call them, just, a little quick thing on Abercrombie and Fitch. I had no idea the turnaround that Fran Horowitz has done at Abercrombie and Fitch. We're efforting her. We'll try to get her on, particularly if we can get her on in studio in New York City. But Abercrombie and Fitch of New Albany, Ohio, it looks like a meme stock. It's like, think of the idiocy stocks out there. Forget about NVIDIA, which is almost well contained. But when I say moonshot, ANF is a moonshot. We had some really interesting perspective on it. Thank you, Lisa Mateo. For a kid's perspective, her kids come home with bags, I say, of A&F shorts and other stuff. What an honor today to have on Jim Glassman. There are two Jim Glassman. It gets confusing. Jim Glassman at J.P. Morgan. And this is James K. Glassman, who with Kevin Hassett 24 years ago wrote a book called Dow 36,000. And everybody liked to say to them, well, you were wrong, because there were 3 once-in-a-lifetime events in the way, including the great financial crisis of 2007. But really, since then, 2009, there's been somewhat of a lift to the markets, getting out through 36,000 and now up to 40,000 on the Dow. And he had great perspective here on the Dow, but should you measure your index with the Dow?
The Dow's got lots of problems. It's a price-weighted index, but it still has been pretty much tracked the S&P during the time when they both existed. But I said, hey, we need an update. I mean, one of the problems with the Dow is it can't sustain high-priced stocks. You can't have Tesla in the Dow. You can't have a company like NVR, which I think is a great company, in the Dow. You can't have Chipotle in the Dow. They would really distort it way too much. Mm-hmm. So I did an asset-weighted index, just kind of for fun, which I call top 30. About a third of the stocks are Dow stocks, and some of them are from the old Wired index, if you remember that one. And then I added some of my own. It actually has done pretty well. I mean, it was up 33% versus 16 for the Dow. I think the Dow has some real problems right now, no doubt about it, and they're almost insoluble.
the author of Dow 36,000, James K. Glassman, on the path forward. He seemed to be very optimistic about the many years ahead. We're on Apple CarPlay, on Android, on YouTube. Search Bloomberg Podcasts. Subscribe to Bloomberg Podcasts. And one of the reasons is a wide set of economic data over the next 2 days. I really think it's been underplayed, 4-day work week, Memorial Day weekend, and all that. But whoa, is there a lot of economic data to reset on to get to, say, Friday at 10 a.m. It's going to be interesting to see. We'll have full coverage. Michael McKee leading our coverage there on the PCE deflator. I'm looking at personal spending. I think will be fascinating to see, but many other indicators as well. Again, we're out on YouTube. Thank you for your attention there, the live chat, and for choosing to subscribe to Bloomberg Podcasts. On Apple Podcasts, this is Single Best Idea.